Welcome back to the Horror Academic, and this time is a bit of a follow-up episode. So, a while back, we covered one of my all-time favorite Italian horror films, Demons, and because it was part of a box set with part 2 from Synapse Films, I said that at a later date I would get around to covering part 2. So, welcome to a later date, and this episode is all about Demons 2. So, a couple of quick notes about Demons. First off, if you're not familiar with the movie and you didn't see that episode, I do recommend going back a few and checking it out. Like I said, I absolutely love that film. It is a lot of fun. It is pretty much all the things that you want in an Italian horror film. It is over the top, it is gory, and it's just a fun ride. And very 80s. Demons 2, more of the same, really, is what you could say. I do want to start off by saying, yes, this is again produced by Dario Argento, directed by Lamberto Bava, and it's pretty much a very easy case of Demons 1 was extremely successful, so let's make part 2. Easy as pie, right? So, part 2, what I love about part 2 is that it kind of follows the same thinking, even though this is before, of Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. And what they do is they basically say, instead of rehashing the first film, or even assuming that you've seen part 1, let's just make this its own thing that is very similar to the first one. So it works as a standalone film, and it also works as a sequel. It's essentially just kind of like a continuation of more Attack by the Demons in a slightly different place and time. Slightly different, I say, because it does have references to what happened in part 1. So if you guys remember with me, part 1 took place in a movie theater, and it is the story of a special opening night screening of a horror film at a new theater, and essentially what is happening on the screen starts happening in the theater, and demons break out as they do. And, you know, hilarity ensues. Gory times ensue, I should say. So, part 2 is a different take on it. So, if that one was in a movie theater, now we're in the mid-80s, and it's actually 1986 that this film comes out. And now what it is, instead of everyone going to the movies to see it, it's everyone's home watching on television. And the film centers around one apartment complex, and the movie of the night, we assume this is either a Friday night or a Saturday night, and the movie of the week kind of thing on TV that everyone's tuning in for is a movie about demons. And in this movie that they're watching, it's about a group of college-age kids, just like in the last one, but instead of going to, in the first, they go to the cemetery that Rasputin's bones are supposed to be interred in. This time, they're going to excavate a site, and that site basically is the site of the movie theater massacre from the first one. That, and if you remember by the end of that film, no real spoiler here, the theater is kind of decimated, and it's just like a post-apocalyptic setting afterwards, and it's just kind of crumbled. So they're basically back at that site. We don't really understand in any context within this film how the end of that film relates to like a timeline of where this film starts, because it's, like I said, it's not particularly linear like that. Much like Evil Dead 2, if we were to assume Evil Dead 1 and Evil Dead 2 both actually happen, even though events repeat in Evil Dead 2, much like in here, putting them on a timeline is a little rough, because it's part retelling, part new story. And that's very much Demons 2. So, and let me just set the record straight. This is 1986, I believe. Evil Dead 2 comes out around 87, so I don't think they're influencing each other in any way, shape, or form. I am not trying to put a notion out there that Sam Raimi ripped off Lamberto Bava. Please do not spread that on the internet. I didn't say it. I just said it's coincidence that they both chose to deal in the same way. Especially since, and like I mentioned last time we talked about Demons, Demons is kind of known in the fan world, particularly like when I was coming up in horror in the 90s, that it is kind of Evil Dead in a movie theater. So it's just irony, and it's, you know, a cool little thing that they have in common. So, like I said, everybody in this apartment complexes watching the same movie. In that movie, demons break out. This movie plays with a lot of cool things about vignettes, right? So it's almost like, in some ways, an anthology, because each apartment is very much its own story, its own characters, and they're all dealing with, it's kind of like in the world of, like if each building was its own kind of short film, until they meet up, kind of thing. So it's a neat take on it in that way too, and I appreciate that, how they're very separate until they overlap, and that's how, you know, you bring the stories together. So you have kind of the main apartment that we're following is an apartment where a 16-year-old girl is having her sweet 16 birthday party, and that's Sally. So Sally's sweet 16, she's got a bunch of her teenage friends over, having a little party. Her parents have gone out for the night to let them have the apartment. They're a little upper class. This isn't like a 80s teenagers American film where, you know, they're like the typical kids, you know, and then they're not like the metalhead or rocker kids either. These are definitely kids who are on the punk, goth, even post-punk kind of spectrum by the way they dress. Think a little bit more Return of the Living Dead, but not as punk. To the point that there's a lot of black, there's a lot of eye makeup, and, you know, a lot of shoegazy, we're dancing to the Smiths and Peter Murphy at my birthday. Note, that's part of the appeal of this film, as much as the soundtrack. The first one was really fun in this kind of Argento-infused metal kind of way. The person that they bring on to do the soundtrack and the score for this film very much wanted them to veer away from that, because he's like, wouldn't you think UK goth has a lot more to do with horror movies than heavy metal? And in some ways, I get it. It's a little more gothic in that sense of the term. So he, because of this, and we'll talk a little bit, the soundtrack is mostly artists from Beggars Banquet Records because of that, which is pretty cool. Definitely a major appeal to this film when I first discovered it, probably in my 20s, late teens, early 20s, and you know, like I said, we have the Smiths, we have Peter Murphy, we have Love and Rockets, The Cult. It's a really great lineup for the soundtrack. But yeah, definitely a post-punk goth birthday party. Cool. There is an aside to that story, is a carload of friends, much like the carload of punks in the first one, who are not yet at the party, but they're kind of the ruffians of the group that we're following, trying to get there. And so there's drama, because it's a 16-year-old's birthday party, so there's gotta be drama. And Sally has kind of left her own party to hang out in her bedroom to also watch the same movie that everybody else in her building is watching, and she gets enthralled in it. And a demon, essentially in a very cool way, minor spoiler if you haven't seen it, you want to be surprised, skip ahead, comes through her television. And that's how I almost said the Z word, that's how the demons make their way into this world. Which is a cool touch, very fun, doesn't make sense, but it's fun, and that's Italian horror. Doesn't have to make sense. Keep that in mind. Other apartments. We have a typical family at dinner, really late dinner apparently. You know, mom, dad, and young daughter. The young daughter wants to stay watch a movie, and the parents kind of go back and forth about should she or shouldn't she be allowed to watch this film, because we get the idea that she's maybe around 9, or maybe younger even, possibly. But cool note, this is the first feature film role for Dario Argento's daughter. I love the irony of that household being the household that is discussing, should kids even watch scary movies? And, you know, I like that little dig at what's going on in society. So that's total Argento. The other apartments, we have a blind woman and her dog. We have the other kind of main couple, and they're kind of the leads of the film, is a young couple, like newlyweds. He is studying for medical exams, and she is pregnant, and she has, I believe she's maybe a little ahead of him in school, because they're both med students. So very pregnant lady. And then I guess the other apartment of note is a little boy who's left at home. His parents are both out working, and so you have your kind of your latchkey kid, as it were, which is very much part of the 80s. So that's all of the kind of like vignettes, right? That's all of the short stories within the world of this apartment complex anthology story, and it's cool how they blend together. Oh, can't forget, the ground floor is a gym full of these like very like Gold's gyms, kind of like muscle dudes and muscle chicks. And here's a fun thing. Now I'll get into the kind of casting here. The head of that gym, the guy who runs the gym, I believe he's the owner of the gym, and he's kind of the one leading the instruction, is a familiar face to fans of Demons 1. So that is actor Bobby Rhodes. Bobby Rhodes plays Hank, the gym owner, in part 2. And he played Tony the Pimp in Demons 1. He is our crossover between the two films. I love that. He's fun. Definitely a guy who didn't take the characters too seriously, had a lot of fun with it. Very over the top. But very appropriate for this story. So that's really everybody in the building that we see. While we're talking about casting, so like I said, that young newlywed couple, that's George and Hannah. George is played by David Edwin Knight. This is mostly his IMDb right here. He has one other listing that is not, from what I can tell, a horror film. And then Hannah is played by Nancy Brilli, who has 45 Italian films in her IMDb list. The other horror, though, is called Body Count from 1986, directed by Deodato, so that's pretty cool. And it stars David Hess. So Body Count, 1986, kind of cool. I've got to look that one up now. So that's Nancy Brilli's other horror film. She does a lot of Italian films, like I said. This is the only other one that really stood out to me as horror. Now, the only other notable actor character in this is, like I said, well, we already said Asia Argento's first role. Of course, Asia, the daughter of Dario Argento, went on to be in lots of Dario's films, but a very lengthy career on her own, including, of course, highlighting here, Land of the Dead by George Romero. As far as films with her father, we have Phantom of the Opera. She was also in Stendhal Syndrome, Mother of Tears, just off the top of my head. But Aja's career is huge. I don't even really feel like her as a little kid is quite the time to really go into how cool Asia Argento is. So let's we'll put a pin in her. Here's a couple of other biggies, but she's she goes on, as an adult to have quite the career. So the birthday girl in the movie, the Sweet 16 birthday girl, Sally, is played by Carolina Tassoni, who was also in Argento's opera, Phantom of the Opera, and Mother of Tears, and Lamberto Bava's film from 2007, I did not know about at all, called Ghost Son, which that's another film I want to look up. So Carolina has quite a few other things, but these are her other related films to both Argento and Bava, so I thought that was pretty cool. Other things about this film takes a lot of fun risks, and what I mean by that is you have some cool things. Like I said, it's an Italian movie, so we don't have to totally make linear sense. We don't have to worry about things being practical in those ways. But then there's some neat things that are we have the demons. If you remember from the first one, demons infect humans quickly. It's like a boom changing process, right? So you have the contagion spreading quickly, an instant horde of demons, much like the Z word, right? Very zombie-like. But they're also, I mean, very non-discriminatory to the fact that we have a demon kid, you know, and the demon kid kind of erupts, and you have like a demon child or a thing, like a full-blown demon, you know, like not human, which kind of, in this very 80s VHS days kind of way, reminds me of like a ghoulie. A ghoulie, I'll get a picture right here about that. But the effect work of it is pretty cool, but it's definitely like, I don't think an American movie would have done something like that, like A, make the kid a demon, and B, just rip the kid apart to spawn a demon. So it definitely goes some crazy places. But I mean, in general, I mean, there's a lot of cool things that it brings over nicely from the first film, like the way the demons are shot. They have these great images of like kind of down the long hallways, or like, you know, a lot of slow-mo and, you know, smoke screens and stuff like that. But the shots down the hallway with their eyes lit up are very cool, because you have like the kind of zombie-esque makeup, you have the kind of claws, the jutting teeth, almost like, you know, werewolf canines, and but they take advantage of this idea when they're in the distance, of lighting up the eyes. There's a great scene in the original where they come up from the kind of like, I guess it's the balcony, and you see you know, a row of the demons kind of ascending on the people, and the row of them, their eyes are lit up. So they do this several times well in this film as well. One of the best shots in the film is very similar, where they are looking, when I say looking up, from the center of a stairwell, right? And multi-layers, like those demons from multiple floors looking down with those lit up eyes. Again, very, very good. There's obviously each of these little apartments, each vignette gets its own massacre once the demon infection spreads there. And then you have the tension of knowing the demons are coming, kind of thing, room to room. But once it is kind of descends down into the gym, then you have this group of people very much like this is where we get the zombie film real feel, is that the group of people ganging together to fight back or to protect themselves in the bar doors and things like that. And they end up in the parking garage underneath the building, and that's kind of like their last stand. And there's some really great sequences in there. Particularly, there's a moment where Aja is in a car hiding, like she jumps into a car while her parents are fighting the demons, and you know, windows up, she sees them get hurt in the fight, and then the demons, I guess she kind of gasps, and the demons all go whoop and ascend on her, and just the fogged windows with the demons kind of trying to claw their way through, and then the lead demon, which is of course the Sally demon, kind of howls for them to all kind of convert, and they look away. But that moment where you're like, are they really going to go after the little girl, just like they did with the little kid? You know, it's like, so it has those really well-timed moments. It's really a series of really good, you know, horror action sequences that are done well. It's a very fun movie, and like I said, to me, watching it this time, I hadn't seen it in a while. It very much felt like that kind of Evil Dead 2 approach of, you know, let's do it again, and let's do it more, bigger and more fun, and it's a great sequel that's also a great standalone film. So I really enjoy it, and I think, as much as I love the original, I forget how good a film this is too. But, you know, it's like all the people who worked on the first one getting to do it again, and getting to do things, you know, like you have those moments of, oh, now we know how to do this, let's do it bigger, let's do it better, let's, you know. So I think it's very much a case of that chance to do it again, and they really rise to the occasion. It's a fun movie, it's a great watch. Oh, there is another fun little nod between the two films, and this is probably just more people who work on the movie showing up in cameos. The security guard in this film was a punk in the first film, one of the punks, I believe in the cars, in the cars driving to the theater. I mentioned there's the woman, the blind woman with her dog. The dog becomes demon, and you would almost expect for this as an Italian film to kind of have that effect in, say, in Suspiria, where the dog of the blind man becomes infected or kind of possessed and attacks the owner, and it's just kind of having that kind of snarling nastiness to it, and that being demon dog. No, this demon dog is almost like it goes through a transformation. This demon dog is closer to John Carpenter's The Thing, in the way that it's just like really just becomes a demon, which is pretty cool. Again, that couldn't have been an easy transformation sequence. I guess, yeah, also like the Evil Dead franchise, they're like deadites. They're attacking your soul. So that was kind of a cool thing I hadn't really remembered. When I say that this is like the bigger, better, bigger, more, kind of aspect of sequel making, I really felt like once it really gets going and the demons are really going after them and just like keep coming, that there are, and maybe this is because the movie theater setting was confined more. Like, you knew how many people were in the movie theater because you watched them in the lobby, then you watched them seat, and then you got enough overhead shots to get an idea about how many people were in the audience, and that meant that was kind of your capacity for demons. Like, you knew you were going to have that many demons possible in the film. In this, we only saw so many people. It doesn't mean they're the only people in the apartment building. And with the gym, it focused on, the group that was working with Hank, right? The guy in charge of the gym. Doesn't mean there weren't people in the locker rooms and stuff that we didn't see before. So it feels to me like they really upped the ante, and there's a lot more demons in the horde attacking in this one. So very much like in the first, we end up this whole sequence of trying to get to the rooftop to be able to escape. They escape and get out of the building, end up in the next building, or building next door, I should say, which is a television studio. This sequence, where I see significance of saying this whole thing was started by television, so by ending up in a TV studio that's obviously gone through an infection too, because the place is wiped out, and the cameras are still running and all that kind of thing. It's perpetuating it. It's saying, now this can be broadcast, or at least this can be recorded. So I get why, we're going to go to a TV studio to kind of bring the story full circle. This entire, outbreak of demons is spawned by the kind of, the broadcasting of this film. So watching television leads to the demons attacking, and by ending the story in an abandoned television studio, which you can only assume has just gone through attack on its own, we are, bringing it full circle. And we're saying, that final demon attack, which is the head demon, this is Sally Demon, going against the young couple, we're either broadcasting, we're not sure if it's sending a signal out, or even just recording her as she's dying, but there's this interesting twist. It gets a little postmodern, a little figurative in the sense that the corpse of her, like her body seems to be deceased, but it's captured on film. Very old school, like capturing my soul, right? And we're saying the demons attack the soul. So photography capturing the soul, the demon attacks on the monitors. And, it's almost like she's trying to break through, just like the demon that started the mess that she let into her bedroom. So I see that that's where it's going. It's a little bit anticlimactic, though, I will say, compared to the ending of the first film, which was just kind of like, now the whole world is post-apocalyptic. We don't really know how infected the world is when this movie ends. But I get what they're doing. They're being clever. I get it. You can say that there's a whole message to the idea of television, where if, we ended the 70s with the main, mode of entertainment still being cinema and film, and how film affects the masses. You know, a horror movie can infect its audience, you know, right? Is the story of Demons. Well, now we're saying that television is infecting the mind of its audience as well, and spreading the word, which can be spreading the disease, you know, the spreading the demon throughout. So, you know, the projected image of television having a, you know, an impact upon its viewership and causing chaos. It's hard to not read into that in ways that are probably far more 21st century than 20th century at this point, but yeah, I see it. I see you guys. I see you, you know, the wheels are turning. I get it. I don't know if it's, you know, intentionally hardcore commentary on society, but even if it's a little nod, I get it. That's cool. So these films have a lot going on, but it's a fun watch too. So obviously, like I said, we're doing this because I wanted to not just recommend Demons, but also Demons 2. These, to be sure, the Synapse set is also available in single editions. It was a little tougher by the time I finally got around to purchasing this. I had to go to Diabolic DVD, you know, a third-party retailer, to find this particular edition. It was not as easily accessible, say on like Amazon or anywhere like a Best Buy at that point. So, but the single editions are still out there. The purpose of this episode is for me to tell you it's worth getting this edition because the second movie is just as good as the first movie in a lot of ways. So I know a lot of people would be tempted to just say, oh, well, here's Demons 1. I don't need Demons 2. Demons 2 is worth it. It's a great movie that gets overlooked because of how awesome Demons 1 is. So what I do want to point out also, like I said, Demons 1, they have this beautiful kind of reproduction card of the invitation to the screening from the first film. They also have, in very much the same vein, a beautiful little invitation card to Sally's party. So, the Tower Complex, apartment number 936. So it's Friday night, and bring your own records, drinks and cake will be served. Yeah, so cute little accoutrement there. We have a nice catalog. Other thing that it comes with, which I did not show in my Demons 1 episode, I forgot, is this poster art, which is great for the first one. So, besides the physical stuff, and of course that includes the reversible cover, where you can choose which film you want to highlight if you don't want the combo art, which I do actually really like the combo art, so I keep it out for that. What else comes on this disc? So, the new piece for Demons 2 that is added for this particular set is a new audio commentary, but there is also, here we go, a video essay. I don't usually do the video essays, but this is someone that I read quite a bit of and do use her extensively in my own research, is Alexandra Heller-Nicholas. She has, it's called Together and Apart, a visual essay on the use of space and technology in Demons and Demons 2. She is a author and a critic. She does excellent work in genre. Any of her books I highly recommend, particularly her book on rape and revenge films. I highly recommend that video essay. It was a really good article. But the most of this is archival extras. Included an interview with the special effects artist, Creating Creature Carnage with Sergio Stevoletti. A lot of cool extras in here. He talks about his own kind of career as a special effects artist and how it leads to him getting the Demons gig. He talks extensively about being a fan of Rick Baker, people like Tom Savini, and having their books, articles about them, and using them as kind of reference materials in designing how to do their own effects. So that's very much kind of like what we consider the the monster kid kind of approach that we hear a lot of directors talk about, growing up with monster kid magazines, like growing up in the famous Monsters generation, the Fangoria generation, Starlog, and those magazines pretty much feeding the imagination of the ones who go on to create the next round. So that was a very, I really appreciated that. He talks about it being a zombie adjacent film. Like they were tasked to make a gory film about creatures attacking people who weren't zombies. But they were zombie adjacent. So I like the way they kind of went into it looking at it that way. I appreciate that. Screaming for a Sequel is a featurette, which is another interview with Lamberto Bava. I found some interesting things in here about him talking about the church. Now, they mentioned how the church was one of the projects that came right after. Like I said, there's Demons or Demons 2, and the next thing that Lamberto Bava and Dario Argento work on is the church. But by the time they're ready to film the church, it is no longer really considered Demons 3, and Bava is not the one set to make the feature. As the producer, Argento instead chooses for Michael Sauvé to direct it, and the church ends up being Sauvé, who we spoke about in my episode about stage fright. He makes the church. So this, I did not realize the close connection Lamberto Bava had, that he had pretty much written the church and then gets swapped out as director. So it's interesting. You can tell he has some feelings on this, because this was his project, his idea, that he didn't get to direct. Unfortunately, when your producer is the person who makes those decisions, and Dario is kind of trying to usher in all of these kind of prodigies to become, the directors on these different projects. That happens, and then he even says, I didn't want to rock the boat. These are my friends, and it's more important for me to stay friends with these people. But I will set the record straight when asked, and I have, in magazine interviews and whatnot, made that clear. I wrote the church, but his name is not on the church. So that was, oddly enough, the most interesting part of his interview was not really about Demons 2, it was about the church. So, interesting sidebar from Lamberto Bava. What else do we have on here? We have, there was a really good Simon Boswell. There's a really good interview with Simon Boswell about the soundtrack and the score. So Boswell also did the music for Sauvé's Stage Fright, but this is one of his first times working, it's his first time working with Lamberto Bava. He had worked with Argento on Phenomena, otherwise known in the States as The Creepers, as kind of working with Claudio Simonetti of Goblin for some incidental pieces of music on that. And he said most of what he worked on did not end up in the film, but is on the soundtrack CD, so that's an interesting thing to look for. So the working relationship there had started, and when this project comes along, he's asked, Simonetti, I should say, does the score to Demons 1, so Boswell is asked to kind of come in again and take over on this one. And like I said, he makes the suggestion to Argento, and he's a Brit, so it makes sense for him to say, hey, what's cool that's going on in the UK right now is this kind of more goth sound, this whole post-punk movement. I think that fits really well into a horror movie, and he kind of he's not a metal guy, so he steers him away and says, for this film, let's try this. He's the one that barters the deal with Beggar's Banquet to get the different songs he wants. And interesting enough, he's got a story about the one band that he really wanted in the soundtrack that wasn't on Beggar's Banquet was the Smiths, because he really thought it would be hilarious for Panic in the Streets of London to play in a movie where, zombie adjacent demons are taking over and running wild. And he had to petition to Morrissey, to write a letter to Morrissey and ask for permission to use that song, and Morrissey being a bit of a squeamish guy, not wanting to particularly be involved with a horror film, so he had to explain this kind of deeper subtext that the movie had about the, you know, the moral implications of television culture, and he convinces him. So I just thought that was a great story. So Simon Boswell, who, you know, scores the film and also, you know, helps to barter the soundtrack for the film, which is pretty cool. So that's pretty much the extras. Like I said, maybe about an hour of extra content, really worth it. Like I did not listen to the commentary track, but I can attest for the rest of it. Really cool stuff. And as far as looking at other editions, just like with Demons, the other edition I own is the combo from Anchor Bay on DVD, which is the Dario Argento Collection Volume 2, which has Demons 1 and Demons 2 double feature. On here, just so you know, to let you know, the audio commentary, widescreen presentation, and theatrical trailer are it for the extras. But it's still, if you're a DVD collector, this is a great set. I totally recommend. Oh, great. As far as who I have on the autographs on this for Demons, well, actually for both, Lamberto Bava, Greta from the first film, and Carolina Sally from the second film. They came around, the three of them together, to a couple of horror conventions for promotion of this particular set. So I was lucky enough to meet them and be like, yeah, I love these movies, and got them autographed. So that being said, I love these movies, and I highly recommend them. So if you watched my Demons episode and went, hey, I should watch Demons again, I haven't watched that in a long time. Or B, you watched the episode and, oh, I gotta look up this movie Demons, I don't know this movie. Well, even if you didn't get a chance to look up Demons and you have an opportunity to watch Demons 2, I say check it out. But I also say watch both. If you're gonna buy a set, buy one of the sets that has both movies together, because they're both really good. You'll enjoy them both. If you like one, you'll like the other, I am sure of it. If you're watching them streaming, they're probably out there somewhere to stream. The same, watch them both. They're totally worth it. So my point of today's episode is, don't sleep on Demons 2. It's also a great movie. It's one of those films that when you watch it, like, why don't people watch this more? Why don't we talk about this one more? Because we forget, because Demons is so amazing. Well, Demons 2, also awesome. Alright, so that'll wrap it up for today. Thanks again for hanging out with me, and I will see you next time on The Horror Academic. See ya.